Chapter 2. A Secret Friend. A few days later, Miss Wilston opened the class by saying, "I have good news for you today." Her face was flushed, and she held her hands behind her back, as though she was hiding a present there. "We are going to do something special in Powdercrag School this year. Each one of you will learn a poem. When you've memorized it, you will stand here by the stove and recite it to your classmates. If you do an excellent job, you'll win a reward of merit." Kirsten slipped down in her seat. Oh, this was too much. Even if she learned to read a poem, how could she remember it? And if she did manage to somehow remember it, how could she stand there in Miss Wilson's place and say the words out loud? Just saying your poem is not enough, of course," said Miss Wilson went on. There was excitement in her voice. "You must speak with feeling. If your poem expresses anger, you must do this." She stretched out her neck and turned down her lips. A few boys tried that, and laughed until she frowned at them. If your poem expresses love, you must do this." Now Miss Wilson smoothed her forehead and smiled gently and lowered her eyelids. "There are so many feelings to express. This is exciting. This is excellent training for your young minds. Believe me." Kirsten chewed on her knuckle. Flutters had come back into her stomach again. Miss Wilson walked among the students, giving everyone a different poem. When she got to Kirsten, she paged to the back of the first reading book. "Oh, here's a good one for you, Kirsten. It's not too long, and it will give you a chance to show both anger and love. You're a lucky girl." She pointed to the poem. To Kirsten, the words seemed to swim on the page like tadpoles in a stream. When Miss Wilston moved on, Kirsten said, "Quick, Anna, read it to me." Anna read, "Cuckoo, cuckoo, says the gentle dove. Cuckoo, cuckoo, says its mate. They play with each other in love, and never know anger or hate." As Anna read, Kirsten tried very hard not to cry, but tears came to her eyes. How could she ever learn all these words? She wished she could just vanish from Powderkeg School like a ghost, disappearing into the night. The next morning, when Kirsten went down to the stream to fetch Mama a bucket of water, a V of geese was flying south. She stopped on the path to watch the geese. Then she stopped again when she came upon a deer drinking at the stream. She stood very still and waited for the deer to finish drinking. Then she heard a bird's whistle. She looked across the stream. Turtles sunned on the fallen log. A frog jumped into the water. Then among the cattails she saw a dark face watching her. Dark eyes, black hair, and a fringed sleeve of deerskin dress. An Indian girl stood right there. Kirsten held her breath. The Indian girl looked at her without blinking. "Hello," Kirsten said softly. The Indian girl didn't speak or move, but the word startled the deer away into the pines. When Kirsten looked back from the deer for the Indian girl, she was gone. Kirsten thought maybe she'd only imagined the girl had been there. Maybe her eyes had played tricks on her. She crossed the stream on the stones and walked a little way into the cattails. No one. But when she went back to the shore, she saw there was a footprint in the soft sand. The footprint was a little smaller than the print of her very own boots. And near the footprint was a blue bead, no larger than a gooseberry. The girl must have dropped it. Kirsten stooped and picked up the bead. She wrapped it in her hanky and put it deep into her apron pocket. As she filled her bucket with water, Kirsten wondered if the girl had been sent here for water too. Kirsten wanted to meet her. How could she do that? Would the girl come back again? Kirsten had an idea. She set down her bucket, hurried into the woods, and crawled into the fort. She took one of the doll cakes decorated with tiny snail shells, then crossed the stream again and laid the doll cake on the sand by the girl's footprints. If the Indian girl came back to the stream, maybe she'd find the doll cake. If she did, she'd know it was Kirsten who left it there. When Kirsten got back to the cabin, her breakfast waited for her on the table. Mama scolded. "You were gone so long. I thought you'd lost your way. Lars and Peter have already left for school. Hurry, or you'll be late." All day, Kirsten wondered about the Indian girl. When Kirsten went back to the stream after supper, the doll cake was gone. In its place was a green wing feather of a duck stuck into a pile of sand like a flag. Kirsten smiled as she picked up the duck feather and put it into her hanky with the bead. Maybe there was a way to make friends with the dark-eyed girl. Every morning and every evening when she went for water, Kirsten looked for the Indian girl. Kirsten practiced walking very quietly through the woods in hope that she might surprise her. Maybe the girl hid in the cattails watching her. Kirsten didn't know exactly when the girl came to the stream, but she knew when she'd been there, because every time Kirsten left a gift on the shore, the girl took it and left something in its place. Once Kirsten left a piece of red yarn wrapped around a white pebble. In its place she found a length of leather thong as smooth as silk. Kirsten left a little doll she'd shaped from mud with a leaf stuck on for a skirt. That night she found a tiny basket woven for grass where the doll had been. Kirsten left a green button on a loop of green thread. It was replaced by a purple bead. Kirsten strung the two beads on the leather thong. She kept them wrapped in her hanky with the feather and the tiny basket. These were her secret treasures, and and the Indian girl was her secret friend. At school, when Kirsten was tired of writing and numbers, of trying to learn her poem, and trying to please Miss Winston, she daydreamed about running across the prairie with the Indian girl. They wouldn't need to talk. They'd run faster than the wind. How Kirsten wanted to see the mysterious girl again. One evening she saved her slice of bread and honey from supper and wrapped the sandwich in oak leaves. Then she went to the stream for water. Then when she went to the stream for water, she put the package of oak leaves on the shore, then settled down to wait. Maybe the Indian girl came here at dusk, Kirsten decided. She would meet her no matter what. But the sun was almost down. Kirsten wasn't allowed to stay away from the cabin after sunset. Mama would worry. Please come, Kirsten whispered under her breath, as though that would make the Indian girl appear. And then there she was, in her dress of soft deerskin. The Indian girl slipped silently through the cattails. She stooped and picked up the oak leaf package and peeled off the leaves and sniffed and began to eat the bread and honey. As she ate, she looked right at Kirsten. Kirsten didn't speak. She didn't want to frighten the girl away again. Instead, she walked slowly forward, watching the girl. The girl was a little smaller than Kirsten. Her hair and skin showed as if they'd been polished. Kirsten thought she'd never seen eyes so inky black. The Indian girl licked honey from her fingers. She watched Kirsten too. Dark shadows moved on the stream as Kirsten crossed the stones. When she stood in front of the Indian girl, the girl reached into the leather pouch she wore around her waist. She held out to Kirsten a tiny clay pot decorated with markings that might have been made from a sharp twig. Kirsten took the little pot. It was as small as an acorn. "It's pretty," she breathed. The Indian girl looked at her hard. Slowly, as though she feared she would scare Kirsten, she reached out and touched Kirsten's yellow braid. Then touched the other one. Kirsten was so pleased that she laughed. She held out the pot again and repeated, "Pretty." The Indian girl couldn't seem to take her gaze from Kirsten's yellow hair. Again, she stroked one of Kirsten's looped braids. Kirsten touched the girl's beaded necklace. Oh, if only they could talk to each other. "Pretty," Kirsten said. "Pretty." The girl's eyes were as unblinking as a deer's. She touched Kirsten's apron, which was decorated with a cross-stitched border. She said something. What was it? Tea. She's saying pretty, Kirsten thought. She wished she could take off her apron and give it to the girl, but Mama would be angry if Kirsten came home without her apron. So instead, she took her hanky from her pocket, opened the bundle, and showed the girl the gift she saved. The girl made a pleased purring sound deep in her throat. Kirsten put the gifts and the little pot into her apron pocket. She held out her hanky to the girl. The hanky had a cross-stitched border in blue and red. Kirsten had sewn it herself. "Here, pretty," she said. The Indian girl took the hanky. "Pretty," she repeated after Kirsten. Then Kirsten realized that it was almost night. If she didn't hurry, she wouldn't get back to the cabin before dark. Quickly, Kirsten bent down and drew in the sand. She made a setting sun. Then she pointed to where the red sun was sinking down beyond the trees. The girl looked at the sun, then at the drawing. She squatted and drew a picture of Kirsten just like Kirsten's in the sand. Now there were two suns side by side. Kirsten touched each one. "Will you come back tomorrow when the sun is like this?" she asked. The Indian girl only stared at her. She touched the hanky Kirsten gave her to her cheek. Then she turned and was swiftly gone into the cattails along the stream.